Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Sports UK YouTube channel, the MMA podcast as well. If you are one of our audio listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I'm joined by John Gamebred Bogoslavsky, our Canadian colleague. How are you, mate?
Good. Excited for this talk. How about you? How's Germany actually?
Germany's good. It's cold. Dropped in weather. Got a nice little holiday coming up next week. I'm very much looking forward to it. So that'll be nice. Nice. You might be a little confused. This might be a little bit weird because we are previewing UFC 298. John has gone solo to preview Hermansson versus Pyfer. So that's going to be up in and around this episode. So if you're listening before that, after that, don't be confused. Unfortunately, the event hasn't come a week early. We are just previewing it early so that you guys get to digest our thoughts over fight week. This is a banger of a card. I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like the last few events have been like the Fight Pass prelims, right? Even to a certain extent, 297. I mean, it's different for you because you were there, right? So it's obviously a bit of a different vibe. But I feel like on my side over here, I feel like, January's kind of been a bit like the Fight Pass prelims, including Hermansson and Pyfer in that. But this is getting main card, baby. We're starting to get the good stuff. It's on its way. It's UFC 298, Volkanovski versus Topuria in the main event for the strap. How are you feeling about this card overall, John?
This card is so effing stacked. I agree with you. I think Dana was like, this is the year to make big fights for some reason, and he wants to keep his main events for all of January until this card like pretty low key. It wasn't like humongous big names like Imavov and Dalitio's fighting recently. They're the bottom. They're outside the top 10 of the middleweight rankings. UFC 297, other than the main event, it was relatively not known fighters. But this, even casuals should know almost everybody on this.
I mean, it's pretty hard to disagree with you there. I mean, just as a quick one before we start on the card, and one thing that's kind of been swinging around in my mind a little bit is the UFC 300 narrative, right? Why do you think, with such an event like UFC 300, why do you think they've stacked these pay-per-views running up to it? Because surely Volk is somebody we would want to have on 300. Henry Cejudo is somebody you'd want to have on there. Ian Garry would be somebody you'd want to have on there. Rob Whittaker as well, I guess, for the Australia Oceania fans as well. Why do you think they've gone like that? And then they had a card like the Canada one.
I'm not sure why the Canada one, especially first time back in a while, especially Toronto. I know they were back in Vancouver, but I think in Dana's mind, he's just trying to make the most consecutive banger pay-per-views he can with 298 starting in 10 days, 299 and 300. They're all stacked. You can't say anything about it. That they're not. You can't say they're not stacked, even with 300 not having a mini event so far as we're recording this podcast. I just think Dana wants to make bangers after bangers after bangers, and you could have swapped anybody from this card 299 and 300, anybody around, it would still be just as good. But I think 300 he tried to stack it either with champs or former champs. 298 is just like fun fights, and 299 as well. And I think he really wants to put the spotlight. Volk has his own card, O'Malley has his own card, and 300 is just a crazy banger of its own.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put it. The UFC 300 is its own animal, and these stars have kind of got their own cards, right? Let's start right at the top. Volkanovski against Topuria. Volkanovski 26-3-0, Illia Topuria 14-0. Two of Volk's losses have obviously come to Islam Makhachev last year. Volk coming back down to the division where he's reigned supreme since when? 2018, 2019? I was still
2019,
living
I
in China
believe.
at the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, it must have been 2018, something like that. Obviously where he defeated Max Holloway to win the belt. They went on to obviously have their trilogy. Most recently, he's beaten Yair Rodriguez in this division with a finish in round 3. Thoughts on the fight in general? Then we can go into how we think it's going to go. But yeah, how do you see this one compared to maybe some of Volk's other title defense?
Well, we've seen Volk with Max like 17 times already, so it's nice to have like a fresh matchup, completely fresh, because Topuria is like still relatively unknown to his limits because he's been in the UFC not for too long.
Mm.
He's been like finishing guys, having a decision in his last fight. So it's tough to say how Topuria will do, but it seems like a good matchup. They both seem like they're not too tall. They're both about around the same height. Excellent strikers. Volkanovski with some excellent cardio, and we know he can go 5 rounds, especially what he did with Islam Makhachev in the first fight, going 5 rounds against a lightweight. So it's a very intriguing matchup. There's a lot of unknowns here.
Yeah, I think it's super exciting as a matchup, and like you say, I think one of the real enigmas in this fight is the level of fighter that Topuria has fought because of the nature of what Volk's been doing. Those top 4 or 5 guys, with Arnold Allen aside, Max, Ortega, Rodriguez, they're the
Korean
top
Zombie.
of the division. Korean Zombie. I wouldn't put Korean Zombie in there, but I'd put Arnold Allen in there. If you include fighters that Volk's fought and not fought. I wouldn't put Josh Emmett in there. I think he is that 5 to 10 ranked guy, and that's obviously the highest guy that Illia's fought. Subbing Bryce Mitchell is obviously a great achievement in itself. What he did to Jai Herbert, I was there in London when he completely stunned the arena when he did that. He completely flatlined him. I mean, I'm going to put it all out there. I am strongly disliking Topuria in his build up to this fight. He's just popping up all over my social media feeds. He's got already in his bio that he's the champ. I don't like it. I think it's going too far into the arrogant. And saying, yeah, I'm not going to give these guys a rematch, Ortega, Holloway, etc. Dude, I mean, you're talking about Holloway and Volk as the 2 most recent goats of the division, right? Where you throw Jose Aldo in there as well. Volk absolutely deserves to get a straight rematch. Whatever happens in this fight, Volk should get a straight rematch. There is no
Agreed.
discussion about that. As for calling yourself champ, just stop. Just stop. You're not the champ, right? Just have a bit of respect for Volk. Say whatever you're going to say about what you're going to go and do with him and stuff like that. But posing with the belt and all this kind of stuff. And he's even releasing a documentary, right? He's going to release a documentary after the fight about the road to the belt. So he's really rubbing me up the wrong way.
It's going to be very awkward if he loses.
In case you haven't noticed, right? Exactly. It's going to be very awkward if he loses. And as for Volk, really interesting to see where he's at, right, man? Like, where's his mindset at? Where's his fighting ability at? He's past that age now at 35. What are your thoughts on Volk at the moment and how he's coming into this fight?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous on how Volk where his mindset is at. Especially what he's been coming out and saying recently, like, yes, I understand you said you've been drinking every day and took a short notice fight against Islam for the rematch and got knocked down in the first round. And he talked about how he needs to be fighting or else his mind goes berserk or something like that. So it's a little bit worrisome because his words aren't affirmation and it doesn't sound like he is fully into this for some reason. But he's always, but leading up to this fight as well, with all the talking Topuria does, Volk's been like posting on Instagram like, I'll let him come to me. He's just posting pictures of him training, a nice edited picture of him ripped after a training session. So it just, like I said, it's a lot of uncertainty before. It's uncertainty on Volk's part because you're only as good as your last performance, as your last fight, and that's what people remember you from your most previous fight. And he did get TKO'd by Islam in the first round by a head kick, which is somebody who's not known for striking. And Topuria, he has good striking, so it's a little nervous. It's just a lot of uncertainty around this.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty around Volk. I'm leaning towards what you're saying. I apologize to Lewis Glover because he's a big Volk fan. I'm a huge Volk fan. I love Volk, man.
Me too.
I want him to go out and get the victory here. I do worry, like you say, but is he being so open about it because it's behind him, right? That's the flip side of the conversation, right? He's being so open because it's behind him, because he's put these things to bed, so to speak, and he's now on a better pathway building up to this fight.
I don't know if it's behind him until we see his performance, how he does with Topuria, and proves it's behind him. Then we'll know it is, because just talking about it won't actually prove anything. I was fully confident versus in the Islam matchup without knowing what he was going through that it'll be exact or close like how the first fight went. But after talking about all this in the first press conference where they showed up all the first pay-per-views, he was pretty quiet. He just said like, I'll let him talk. I'll do the talking in the cage. So I do hope it is behind him. I want to believe Volk, but until he steps into the cage and fights Topuria, I will not believe him.
So you're really, really staying on that fence that it's worrisome. Matchup wise, let's put my dislike for Topuria aside, and our yes, you could kind of say bias towards Volk because we both love him. How do we see this going as a mixed martial arts contest? We talked a little bit about the power that Topuria has, and Volk looking a bit suspect against Islam. That seems to be one of the bigger narratives going into this fight. He just got knocked out. Now he's going up against a KO artist, so to speak. Do you buy into that? Like, is that how you see this matchup going, or do you see it Volk showing his full set of skills? Like, how do you see it going?
I think no matter what, we will see Volk his full set of skills in this fight. The question is Topuria, because he hasn't fought anybody significantly good in the top 10, top 15, top 5 of the featherweight division. Other than Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell, he hasn't fought really. That's really quick for a title shot, because Bryce Mitchell, he's kind of up and down. Like, he had a good winning streak. He loses to Topuria, and he said he felt he wasn't feeling well that day. So, but you don't know if you can believe Mitchell or not. And Mitchell had lost by KO to Emmett. Emmett his KO power, but then Emmett couldn't knock out Topuria in their fight, and he brought him to 5 rounds. But Topuria did get hit, so I do think Volk will get his shots in this fight. I think it's a really good matchup. I think both men are very, very well rounded, so that's why it's so intriguing and uncertainty about this fight.
Yeah, I've really been going back and forth. I've been going back and forth about this, to be honest, about the matchup and everything like that, and how the styles match up. Yeah, I think if Volk is going to pick up the win, I think he's got to really show all of his game. He's really got to show all of his game like he hasn't had to before. I think with Islam, you could kind of, especially in that first fight, the striking wasn't probably as crisp as you would expect Topuria's to be, and I think Topuria is going to test him enough in the grappling to make it really competitive and make Volk have to use everything, right? So I think if you're Topuria, you have to go for the nuclear option, right? You have to go to the nuclear option. Speaking of the nuclear option, Nathan, the Octagon Oracle Shields, has joined us from a cave. By the looks of it, he's coming in and out of the light like Bane in the latest, in one of the Batman films. How are you, mate? You all right?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I'm pulling the old Darren Till.
I was about to say.
Drive interviews.
You gonna get a drive-through to McDonald's?
50 chance, 50 chances I'll get pulled over by the police, just like Darren in the good days.
Well, we can edit that out. Don't worry. So we were just at a point of discussing the stylistic matchup with Volk and Topuria. So I was just finishing off by saying, if you're Topuria, you've got to go for the nuclear option. I think you've got to go and try and finish him. I don't think you try and go the 5 rounds with Alexander Volkanovski. I think that's too much of a risky strategy for Illia. I think you just got to try and knock him out. So Nathan, I'll throw it over to you. We did discuss a little bit about the build up to the fight as well. So throw us your opinions on this main event.
I think it's going to be an interesting one because I really rate Illia Topuria. He's well rounded. I think he's definitely the next generation of talent coming through. And I think obviously Volkanovski coming off a loss the way that he did, obviously the mental demon stop like that against Islam may play a factor, but I think Volk's probably level-headed enough for it to not really affect too much. I think from a stylistic point of view, it's a fun matchup because Volk's great everywhere. But I don't really see any area where one of these guys is going to be more dominant than the other. I will say it. I think there's probably a lot of people writing Volkanovski off in this one, and I think it's very foolish. I think when we talk about Volk, with the only guy he's lost to is the number 1 pound for pound, who's the division above, who's also undefeated. Not undefeated, but you know what I mean. He's on an absolute tear, and my view on it is very simple. I think there's going to be a lot of people coming to MMA socials and speaking on podcasts and whatnot on Monday morning or Sunday morning, whenever they get them out, saying it's a situation of you all must have forgot, surprise the king and all that, because I've had Alexander Volkanovski to get this done.
So that takes us nicely into the predictions there. Nathan, you say you fancy him to get him done. Method? What are you saying?
I think he can finish Topuria. If I was going to bet and put money on it, I would probably say that Volk got points. But I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the later rounds. You know, that Volk's far more experience in those championship rounds, and whether Topuria's got that gas tank to fight at that pace with Alex for the 5 rounds, we'll just have to wait and see.
Vote by decision. John, where are you going with this one? I don't know where you're going to go, actually. Your speech has left me a little bit on the fence about where you're going to go.
So let me start by saying I love Volk. I think Volk is one of the greatest of all time already.
No. Oh, no, you're not. Oh, no, you're not.
I think Topuria is just this cannonball that's flying through the featherweight division. And we're about to see the 5th undisputed UFC featherweight champion. And I do think Topuria will get it done somehow by like split decision.
Okay, well, I mean, John let me speak then, and he didn't interrupt me whatsoever. I'm not going to return the favour. So, I mean, out of interest, which performance against which very, very top athlete was it, Illia Topuria? Was it the Josh Emmett one that makes you think that he could beat Volkanovski? I mean, I know they've both got shaved heads, but I think we're talking about a very different caliber of opponent.
So I before you jumped on, I was talking like it's a lot of uncertainty. Like Topuria hasn't fought anybody really, but being 14-0, with only 2 decision wins, and you have this confidence and this aura about you. I think he is a little cocky, but I think he's gonna bring it to Volk because I do see them as more of a similar fighting style. Other than Topuria being better on the ground, I think he has better submissions as he has more finishes by submissions. But I think Topuria is thinking Volk's gonna be easy work, but I think Volk's gonna humble him, but Topuria will do enough to get the victory. I don't think Topuria is as easy to get finished or be beat as we think he is. And speaking of his last performances, like he shut out Josh Emmett. He submitted Bryce Mitchell's a black belt in Thug Jitsu. Almost got knocked out by Jai Herbert in London. Came back, knocked him right out, and that was at lightweight as well. Ryan Hall, I guess he is old, but he still beat them and TKO'd. So I just think Topuria is on a streak that will not be ended by Volk.
Yeah, I think this is very much a situation of you don't know till you know. Because,
Exactly.
like you said, John, I do think Illia Topuria is the next generation. I think he's the real deal. I just think he's in with the guy. And I'm not convinced that Alexander Volkanovski is no longer the guy. And I won't believe it unless he does get beat on Saturday. He's ticking on in age, but I think he's still, other than, losing the last fight to Islam the way that he did, we were talking about Alexander Volkanovski probably being in his prime. So sort of people to suggest that he's maybe over the hill or whatever now, I think that's a bit far-fetched. I know you've not said that, John. But for me, the flashback to the Jai Herbert one is always a big one for me, because if you're UK-based, we all know how good Jai Herbert is. And I think a lot of people hold that against Illia Topuria a little bit. But Jai's just never been able to put it all together in the UFC. But he's actually a phenomenal fighter. His best performance today was probably the Topuria one before he got clipped. He was kind of piecing Topuria up at stages there and obviously hurt him real bad. But I just think Volkanovski has a much higher fight IQ. So I think it'd just be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, for my pick, I can't bring myself to go for Topuria. But if he does win, I would like him to do it John's way. Get humbled in the process. Have it be, a proper war and a split decision. I don't know. I don't don't want to put it in my mind. I don't want to put it out there. So I'm gonna go Volk by decision. I think it's gonna be a really tough, grindy fight. I think it'll be a 3-2. I definitely see Topuria having some success against Volk, but I think similar to the Yair fight, when Yair started to lay hands on Volk, I think Volk will just go to the wrestling and he'll be able to not dominate him, but he'll be able to stifle some of that Topuria attack. So sticking with the Aussie, this kind of been going under the radar a little bit, but if you know, Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa. How much fun is this fight, boys? Like this is unreal. This is absolutely unreal.
I think there's a little more added to this one, isn't there? Because of the last time we saw Robert Whittaker. I think that makes this far more intriguing than it maybe was before, because I think Robert Whittaker, for me, has just been phenomenal. But he's been around for a while. For a long, long time, he's been the gatekeeper to Izzy. And he'll hate that, but that's kind of what he's been. If you beat Robert Whittaker, you're next in line for the title. And as we just obviously saw with Drickus getting the shot, I think Bobby Knuckles had a bad night at the office against Drickus. I think he got caught, which can happen. It was nice and early. And I just think that can happen. But then we watched Drickus and Sean Strickland and a skill level fight. It was a bit doggy. It wasn't too. It was a bit scrappy, and it wasn't the cleanest. And it's difficult to imagine how either of those men could beat Robert Whittaker, based on what I know about Robert Whittaker, from what my eyes have told me over the years. I think I expect Whittaker to bounce back and get this done. I think he's got way more ways to victory. And I think the inactivity of Paulo Costa is going to play a massive part, because he just doesn't fight. I'm not even convinced that this fight's going to go down. I'm really not, because Paulo Costa has become a bit of a pull-out merchant. And he's just, he had the wine situation with Izzy, and then he's pulling out of fights left, right, and centre. And I think coming back and having a fight and taking it against Robert Whittaker, I honestly think, just picked apart by Robert Whittaker. I think stylistically it's a fun fight. I think if the very best Paulo Costa turns up, we might get a fun fight, but I don't see how Paulo Costa, having not fought that often, can actually be at his best. Since he got kind of leathered by Izzy, I've not seen anything from Paulo Costa to sort of suggest that he's back. I mean, he had that, was it the war with Marvin Vettori?
And Rockhold as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, even like that one with Rockhold, with all due respect, look, Rockhold's got bags of talent and bags of skill, but he's an over-the-hill fighter with a chin that's just shot to bits.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had a good fight with Paulo Costa, so I think there's an element of levels here, and I think Paulo Costa's going to find that out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think until Costa walks into that cage and they actually lock it, then I'll believe he's fighting. Because I have a feeling when he walks out, if he walks out into like the checking area, he might just keep walking into the stands. Because I have no idea if he will show up or not. Because all this contract dispute, he wants to be paid money. But buddy, you haven't fought anybody. You're not fighting, and you haven't beat anybody significant. You know, your last win versus Yoel Romero, who's like 47 years old, or 40,000 years old by decision, and that was only back in 2019. And then you lost to Izzy clearly by knockout. Then with Vettori, you had this laziness, I guess. Didn't want to cut weight. I think you could easily just fight at 205 and just make your way to the title shot. You got humbled by Vettori. And let's be honest, like Vettori sure is in the top 5, but I thought Costa was gonna win against him. And Vettori doesn't do anything significant other than try to kind of out jab you and hug you to the cage and bring you down. And then you win with his Rockhold, and I think that brought more fans to Rockhold because of his personality inside the cage, right? The way he smeared blood on him, screaming the F word and punching him. So I don't know how he could do anything better against Rob Whittaker, who's been active, who's been a champion, who's been in division for the longest of time, and his only losses to, like Nathan said, is Izzy twice, and Duplessis, who I also believe was just an off night. I think something just wasn't clicking for him, and he got caught and couldn't recover, and the ref stepped in. Whittaker had this long history of injuries that prevented him from fighting and defending a belt a few times. So now he sounds like he's fully back healthy. He's been fighting consistently. He fought Vettori after Izzy. And then after he had this run of fighting Till, Gaslam, Cannonier in the Apex during the COVID times. And he won all them fights. Even was by decision, but it was clear-cut decision for him. Nobody had answers for Whittaker. So in terms of this matchup, I don't see anything Costa will bring that Whittaker hasn't seen, and should be an easy matchup for Whittaker to figure him out and get him out of there.
I don't like it when we're all unanimous on something we think, because it tends to go the other way. So hey,
that's why I picked Topuria earlier.
Yeah, yeah, I guess if that's the one. No, I can't disagree with anything either of you said. I mean, the one that I point to is that Marvin Vettori performance from Robert Whittaker. I think that version of Robert Whittaker is the best Robert Whittaker we've seen. He just looked absolutely flawless that night in Paris. He just looked incredible. And when you look at the two mutual opponents, Costa struggled with Vettori, no matter how much he was weighing, close to 250 pounds or whatever it is that Paulo Costa does. I think Costa's got one weapon, one way to win this fight, and that's to try and knock out Robert Whittaker. And I think Whittaker's going to have his foot movement's going to be too good. And I think Costa's not going to be able to keep up with him. So I'm going to put my prediction way out there. Straight away, Robert Whittaker by decision. John, what are you saying?
I'm in agreement. I have Whittaker by decision. I feel like it's going to be definitely a shutout. And I have a feeling Costa might get gassed out a little bit because not fighting for a while and all the weight he's carrying around.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna go three in a row. I'm going with the points decision. For Robert Whittaker, unanimous. I think the only thing that I would be leaning towards is, just as John said then, would be Paulo Costa just running out of steam in the final round, and Whittaker maybe getting a finish. But I'm not sure. Robert's it's been a while since he's really finished anybody, so I expect a points one. I think. But I think it's going to be, like you said, Taylor, the Marvin Vettori performance is an absolute standout one. I think if that Robert Whittaker turns up, he's against anybody. I think he's the champion at this weight class. You know, I think he would have absolutely pieced Drickus up and stopped Drickus had he performed the way he performed against Vettori. But it wasn't his night, and I think this one will be for sure.
So, guys, predictions are in. We're disagreeing, agreeing, disagreeing, agreeing. Let's see where this one takes us. Quite an interesting one. Henry Cejudo making his comebacks against Merab. This is a big fight in the division, I think, lads. I mean, we don't really know with Henry, do we? We know what Merab's all about, right? We know he's probably the next guy, and he probably should have been the next guy, but he's not because of Chito Vera. What do we think about this fight? I mean, what do we think about Henry overall? The matchup, is Merab just going to run through him? What are our thoughts?
Well, I think we know what Nathan's thinking because he predicted Cejudo to be the champion of the bantamweight division by the end of the year, and I couldn't disagree more with that nonsense.
Nonsense, he said. Woo.
So, Merab versus Cejudo, I think the stylistically, it's amazing. I think because they're both like amazing wrestlers. One's Georgian, one's American, all American wrestler, former champion. Merab could tick off a name off his list. Have another former champion under his belt with him being Peter Yan like that too. I think Merab's on a crazy tear as well right now. You know, his only loss came to, or his most recent loss came to Ricky Simon, where it kind of ended the fight, but then the refs and everybody seen he was out, and they ruled a TKO win for Ricky Simon. But other than that, I don't see how Merab can lose. I think his wrestling is a bit more superior. He is younger. He's fresher. He's been way more active. Cejudo retired for a few years there and kind of been forgotten. So I think Merab has to utilize his wrestling the way Sterling did versus Cejudo, and he had amazing success with Cejudo by taking him down a few times. And Merab's going to shoot for like 374 takedowns. Will Cejudo stuff all of them? I don't think so. So I think Merab has the cardio, has the wrestling against Cejudo. In terms of Cejudo, I'm not dismissing him completely. He's still former flyweight and bantamweight champ, gold medalist in wrestling in the Olympics. His only loss also just came to Sterling, but that was also after 2 years off, and he's coming right back to fighting versus Sterling, who's Merab's training partner. So I think they're gonna share some tips, some secrets on how to beat Cejudo.
That was a split, don't forget. Right, Nathan, over to you. The other side of this courtroom that it's kind of turned into.
I'm going to say, all's fair in love and war. Chance to respond. Well, I remember a gentleman, a Canadian gentleman, once saying that Ricky Simon is no more than a gatekeeper. And if you beat Ricky Simon, all it proves is that you're eligible to become in the top 15.
Yeah, but that was
This
like, what,
is the
10
same
years
Ricky
ago?
Simon that
Are you
beat
two
Merab
keeping tabs on each other
correct.
or what? What's going on here, eh? You two got very, very short, very long memories for each other, haven't you? Hey,
He lost.
It's,
Simone beat him 6 years ago and arguably beat him. Simone lost both the first 2 rounds. Can we agree on that?
I would argue it doesn't matter.
Sure.
But, the time period, I mean, again, here's the thing, right? If we're being deadly honest about this, 99% of MMA fans will be choosing Merab Dvalishvili to get this done. And logically, I lean towards that. I'm not stupid. I picked Henry because I believe that it was a big shout, but also there's absolutely a possibility there because if he beats Merab, he's next. And I think there's certainly a key to victory against Sean O'Malley or Chito Vera because I just believe that neither of those guys is elite, particularly. I know John thinks Sean O'Malley's going to be the next big star, but I'm expecting him to come on here with a curly pink hair one of these days, but he's not done it yet.
Next time, I'll promise. When we're previewing 299, I'll do it.
But my argument with Merab is very similar to that of Illia Topuria. I don't believe he's particularly beaten anybody of any real note. Now you look on the resume, and yes, it says Jose Aldo, and yes, it says Petr Yan, but this isn't prime Petr Yan. This isn't prime Jose Aldo. This isn't any top contenders in this division. And Henry Cejudo is a level above the guys on there. Even now, I believe he's better than the version of Jose Aldo that Merab beat, and I believe he's better than the version of Petr Yan that Merab beat too. And I just think there's a lot going on with Cejudo. I think he came back. We talk about the fact he lost to Aljo. Well, yeah, but Aljo was the champion. He lost a very close, very competitive fight. Agree, he lost, but it was a close fight. He was by no means out of it. That was coming off the back of a real long layoff, which he's not doing now because he's shaken that off. He's also had the loss of his sister, tragically, obviously, with her situation. So maybe Henry Cejudo, for all his glamour and all the glitz and all the cringe and everything else that comes with it, this is a guy that's maybe got something to fight for again, other than money. And this is where the road to quadruple C begins. Henry Cejudo shows experience over Merab, who I don't believe has beaten anybody that is championship caliber, at least a prime version of. And he's not facing a prime version of Henry Cejudo either. But I think Cejudo's got enough for him. I really do.
I am struggling with this fight, gents. I'm not gonna lie. I am really worried that this could turn into a bit of a just give them shoes and whatever those things are called, and let them have a wrestling match. I'm quite concerned about that because I think that's Merab's game plan. The dude is a decision merchant. 12 wins by decision, 3 by KO, 1 by submission. It's not attractive. His style is not attractive. He's actually made himself more attractive outside the cage with some of his stuff. Like he was doing all that in the suit and everything, and he was flipping people. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Merab outside the cage.
Yeah, when he was out there training in the snow and everything like that, or the rain, whatever it was. Yeah, that's all great fun. That's all great fun, but it makes me worry for this matchup. And I think ironically enough, I think either of these guys beat either of the two guys that are in the championship fight, to be honest. Regardless of Merab having not fought anybody, I just think he's got the style to nullify Sean O'Malley and frustrate him. And, you know, if Petr Yan can't really get proper hands on Merab, I think Sean O'Malley's going to struggle as well because their fight was pretty close when they fought. And Henry Cejudo likewise. I think he's got the style to get one over on O'Malley. So that split decision against Aljo is ringing in my mind a little bit, actually. So I'm leaning towards Nathan on this one. I'm not going to lie. That split decision has got me, and I think Nathan, you made a very compelling case. You know, maybe he has got something to fight for. He's doing this for a reason. I think he loses this fight. He said he's going to retire, right? Mm-hmm. He's not going to go down and fight some of the other guys that are there. So there is a lot on the line for him. How is it going to go down? Oh God, I don't know. I just think either way, it could be an ugly decision wrestling fight. Whoever can make the most out of the wrestling and maybe get some strikes off. Predictions, boys. Obviously,
it surprises me to hear you say that, Taylor, because these being both heavy wrestlers and your love affair with Magomed Ankalaev made me think that you were going to be well into this fight. And you know,
Magomed Ankalaev is a knockout artist. He is a knockout artist disguised as a wrestler. Come on.
No, I mean, honestly, like I said, I know that this is a long shot. I know that I'm potentially back in the 50 to 100 to 1 horse here at the Grand National, right? But for me, I'm putting my money on Henry Cejudo to get this done on points.
The reason I talk about win streaks, like, has to be pretty impressive with win streaks. Over 5 is like amazing. 6, 7 is like great, but 8, 9, and double digits, you're like, okay, that's something now. And it's not like he's not fighting like bums like outside the UFC. He's been fighting in the UFC for a while. Even when, like, one of my examples would be like Tony Ferguson had a 12 fight win streak. But other than Kevin Lee at the time in RDA, nobody significant was there. I mean, he beat an old Cerrone, Venata. Okay, Barboza. Barboza was impressive.
Can I just
But
interrupt you whilst I've got something in front of me, John?
sure.
You want to talk about win streaks? Wilson Reese, Sergio Pettis, Demetrius Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, Dominic Cruz. You know, beat them?
Well, you know what's in common with most of them as well? They're all former champs as well.
Yeah.
Dillashaw, he did move down to try to fight Cejudo. And we all know what happened after with whatever he took. So it just win streaks are impressive, and it means you're on a tear. While Cejudo was retired for 2 years, Merab has been fighting, and he's been training with Sterling, who is a champion, who defended his belt, whether you like it or not, 3 times. And he is one of the best bantamweights, and Merab is just a step underneath him, who's trying to get his spotlight as well. And we both agree, if both of these guys can beat O'Malley and Vera, who's fighting for the belt in a month after them, that means they're elite. That means are they like a John Jones type? No, but they're elite of the division, and it still brings weight to your name that you have such a long win streak.
Do you want me to go again, John?
So you think Henry Cejudo is going to win, John?
I think it's gonna be Merab decision, if not TKO. I might see TKO.
Before you submit to the TKO, you talked about how Henry Cejudo's not been fighting, but Merab Dvalishvili has. The last time we saw Merab was in March of 2023. The last time we saw Henry Cejudo was May of 2023. So my guy is actually the more active of the two.
In terms of 2 years that Cejudo retired, he's been fighting, and he worked his way up in the top 5 division.
I need to grow this beard back because this chin's for days from this angle.
You gotta go the game bred way.
The game bred route.
That's it.
Have out with it, John. Right, okay. Merab by decision or TKO, yeah?
Something like that. I think is gonna get a decision. Although, to your point, it is 2 wrestlers, but all the fights start on the feet, and every round start on the feet. I think we'll get some nice exchange on the feet as well.
Come on, bloody hope so. Where am I going to go with this one? I'm not terribly excited, to be honest, about this one. Actually, the more we dived into it and spoke about it, more interested in you two, actually. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go Merab. I want to go Merab decision. I think Merab will just get it by decision. I don't know why. I'm just going to lean that way. One that I am excited about, Mr. Ian Machado. What was this? Did anyone see Rampage Jackson on the MMA Hour? Oh my goodness! If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Anyway, Ian Machado, Garry, and Geoff Neal. Ian finally getting back in there, obviously after missing out on his last fight due to the pneumonia. That December card. I think we were all pretty much looking forward to that. We previewed that fight in some depth, and then literally I think 2 hours after the podcast dropped, he dropped out. So yeah, things happen. He's back in against Geoff Neal. Nathan, I'll let you start in on this one. How did you see fortunes going for the Irishman?
I think he wins this at a canter, mate, if I'm honest. I just think Ian Garry's a level above Geoff Neal. I don't think he's shown all the strings to his bow yet. We've seen him in Cage Warriors, which admittedly is obviously a much lower level than the UFC. But we've seen of late that Ian Garry has been able to carry that form and that kind of impressiveness over into his performances. The last one was Neil Magny, right?
Yeah.
and absolutely piece Neil Magny up for fun. I think this is the same. I think the big difference is obviously he's got to be a little wary of the power coming back, because Geoff Neal can bang. But I think Ian Garry's probably. I think you'll see him go out and try and make a real statement here. That's my only concern, is that he might actually go out and get drawn into a bit of a dogfight, because he took a lot of slack and still takes a lot of slack to this day. And if it wasn't him, it was his wife, it was his kids, it was his, just a little bit of
Trainer.
everything, which, admittedly, when you talk the way that Ian Garry does, you bring a certain element of that on yourself, and you want the spotlight for all the good reasons. You've got to take it for the bad sometimes as well. But if we're just talking about performances, quite an easy one for me. I think Ian Garry wins this. I think we've seen from Geoff Neal, he's capable of beating some good guys. He beat Vicente Luque and some others in there as well. Last time we saw him was a loss to Shavkat, I think, which no shame in. But I think this is what's happening here. I think we're seeing a new generation coming through. Shavkat is one, Ian Garry is another one, and I think he'll pick his way through Geoff Neal and move on to bigger and better things.
I hope we have the MMA Mav triangle here. So Garry beats Magny, Magny beats Neal. So it's only right if Neal beats Garry. But yeah, I'm in agreement with Nathan. I think Garry is a level above Neal, but Neal brings that power. You know how he knocked out Bilal with the head, not Bilal, Mike Perry with the head kick. He also dropped Bilal Muhammad. He brought Shavkat into a dogfight, so I hope he does the same versus Ian Garry, because you have to bring the dog out of Ian Garry. He's been talking a lot of crap. He hasn't fought since I don't remember his last fight. Was it now? Oh, against Magny. And he's been talking crap to Magny. His lead up to his fight versus Luque has been talking crap, and all the stuff came out of him. So, like we previewed him when he was supposed to fight. If he could keep all distractions out of the cage, focus on himself, be a professional, and not lean into the dogfight with Geoff Neal, it should be a relatively easy win for him.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the problem with Geoff Neal, I think he's there to be hit. And I think that's going to go to his detriment in this fight. I think Ian Garry's a sniper at his best. And I think he is going to be at his best. He's going to have the fire in his belly from the pneumonia against Vicente Luque. And obviously everything that's been going on outside of the cage. I think, yeah, he's got a big point to prove, with Shavkat also going out there and being really victorious the last time out against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, getting that finish. There's lots of contenders up and coming in that division, and Ian Garry wants to be one of them. He's obviously going to want to headline an Ireland card. Dana's been talking about that this year as well. So yeah, I think he's going to go out and make a real statement. Honestly, I could see Garry finishing him first, if not definitely second round. Is going to be my prediction. What about you boys?
I don't see a finish. I think Ian Garry wins this at a canter. Like I said, I think he makes a bit of a statement insofar as he does exactly what he did to Neil Magny, which was just beat the shit out of him, basically. And I think that we're in a position where, same again, rinse and repeat. I think he's good enough to just piece Geoff Neal up. I think that's what he does.
I'm also going Ian Garry by decision. As long as he doesn't get into a dogfight, because we saw he got dropped by Kinan Song with a counter. So Neal could do more damage than that. So as long as he stays out of it, it should be flowing nicely to a decision for Garry.
Very good. Takes us to our main card opener, and then we'll have a little bit on the prelims. Anthony Hernandez, middleweight, battle it out. Anthony Hernandez against Roman Kopylov. I believe both these gentlemen are ranked, or is it just Hernandez that's ranked
Just
at 15
Hernandez.
or something like that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we were
Hernandez
looking
14.
into it. Yeah, it's 14.
For
so
now.
it is a ranked fight. Yeah, for now, right? For now. Interesting one for the main card opener, considering how stacked the rest of the card is, and even a couple of those prelims you could actually argue might be a better main card opener. What do we think of this one, gents?
I think the UFC know exactly what they're doing here. I think Roman Kopylov is an absolute beast, and he's exciting, and I think it's there for him to make a real statement again. To kind of just propel himself into the rankings.
Yeah, definitely a good matchup. I think Hernandez stepped on out of nowhere. Did he beat that black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy in the Apex? And
Rodolfo
then
Vieira, yeah, he tapped him out.
yes. And then he submitted him, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
I
going
think he took
crazy
his
because
back, if I'm not wrong.
he was like a plus 800 underdog or something like that to beat him, and to beat him by submission was even crazier money. So he's definitely going off that hype. Kopylov, though, is a sniper. He is probably the next big thing in middleweight to go for that run and try to get a title shot in within the end of next year, probably. And he's a fun fighter. His UFC debut was fun, and he has to keep going on that streak. I see him.
Yeah, I mean, sorry,
I,
John. Go on.
sorry, I see him overpowering a little bit Hernandez. I think Hernandez will have to probably do what he did versus Vieira and take him down. But I think Kopylov is just too good to get beat.
You know the Mateusz Peñas and Matthew Bonner fight, Taylor? That's what this is going to look like.
Oh God!
I just think,
Okay.
yeah, because I think Kopylov. The last time I watched him, I think it was Josh Friend, and God, he absolutely pieced him up. He hurt him everywhere. The kicks, like the sound. I think it was in the Apex, I believe, and the kicks, the sound that was coming off him, and the knees, and just everything he threw. He just throws with absolute spite, and he doesn't gas either. He puts everything into his shots, and he's just got an engine on it. He's gonna hurt for Hernandez, unfortunately, in this one. And yeah, I expect him to do it in devastating fashion. That's why he's as high up the card, because he wins this, gets ranked.
I think I recall that fight now. I think I recall that fight with Kopylov, and it was around about the time we started the pod. So I don't know if we talked about him on the show, but yes, I remember. I remember that he beat him from pillar to post, didn't he? And yeah, I think Hernandez, he's on a decent winning streak. Shabazian, Barrio, and Frem, and obviously Rodolfo Vieira.
That doesn't mean too much beating the Canadians. Everyone beats them.
Yeah. That's not where I was going, but still. Yeah, it could be a nasty one. It could actually be a nasty one. Now that I've remembered who Kopylov is. Oh yeah, this could be a nasty one. This could be a nasty one. John, anything you want to add to that?
I think this will be an exciting fight. I think either it's going to be like fight at night or complete performance from Kopylov where he just destroys Hernandez, and we might see a good solid finish round 2 by Kopylov.
Okay, solid finish round 2, Kopylov. Nathan, I guess you're going for a finish as well.
Yeah, I'm going round 1. I don't think he's going to waste any time.
I just think Hernandez is a bit more tough and durable because
I do agree with that. Yeah. I do agree with that. I just think he's just a killer, man. He's so nasty, so spiteful.
Yeah,
he fought recently too. Kopylov fought like not too long ago.
Yeah, September. Yeah, when he did Josh Friend.
Yeah,
September last year. So he could really be a jump out of this card then, eh? We could be talking about him that Monday morning, the biggest winners. Kopylov could well be one of them. Let's go down to the prelims. We'll kind of give the mic, so to speak, to each of you to kind of shout out anything you wanna draw attention to. John, I'll let you jump on first, mate.
Well, Justin Tafa. Who doesn't like this guy? Right? Heavyweight and has like the Mark Hunt style, walk-off KOs, doesn't look back, doesn't care, just another day in the office. And it's coming off a nice win on that Izzy Strickland card back in Australia. So I'm looking for him to get another big knockout win, and we'll see how Rodrigo de Lima recovered from the Derek Lewis knee. Right, it was him. So see if his teeth are back in place and if that chin holds up. If anything, if Lewis got a knockout like that with a knee, I don't see how Tafa doesn't walk away. I don't see Tafa going past the first round. I think he's going to get it done within the first 5 minutes.
Okay, Nathan,
Yep.
what are you liking on the prelims, mate?
Tapa's definitely fun. The one that stands out to me on this prelim card is the Mackenzie Dern Amanda Lemos fight. Mainly it stands out because I've got to say fair play to Mackenzie Dern, man, because following the defeat last time out against Jessica Andrade, she could have been forgiven for not stepping in to take this fight. Who was it originally? Because someone dropped out, didn't they?
Mackenzie replaced I'm also blanking. Mackenzie stepped down on short notice because
Tatiana.
yes,
Tatiana Suarez, yeah.
Tatiana Suarez.
So, I mean, I just think, yeah, Amanda Lemos was challenged for the title, didn't she, last time out? Never a wise move. Never a wise move, given the champion there. Avoid at all costs, but yeah, I think it could be a fun one. This stylistically, I mean, I spoke about it with one of you guys last time, insofar as Mackenzie Dern kind of binned off Jason Perillo and then decided to go throw in hands with Jessica Andrade, which, let's be honest, you don't get rid of your boxing coach and then go in and throw hands with Jessica Andrade. There's only one thing going to happen. But she showed some serious heart, man, because she got hurt a lot. And the fact that she's jumping straight back into the fire against Lemos, who, was on a bit of a finishing streak herself before she ran into Wei Li, I can't fault it. It makes me a bit more of a fan just watching it. The fact she's willing to step in and take that fight. That being said, I think she gets beat.
Yeah, Lemos could be too good for her on the feet.
Kind of similar matchup, but Suarez very heavy base. They're in very jiu-jitsu base as well. So it shouldn't be too much of a change for Lemos, but
I think the biggest change is that obviously when we talk about the hands, I think Tatiana Suarez is much more comfortable and a higher skill level than Mackenzie. I think Mackenzie can be caught out in that. But as far as the ground game, there's obviously a lot of things that Amanda Lemos won't have had to change from her original plan.
Yeah, pretty clear path to victory. One I'm going to point towards, I mean, there's so many, is that first fight. Apology, has it? The first fight is Rinya Nakamura coming off the road to the UFC series. I don't know if you gents have paid any attention to that. I watched the most recent final, actually, that was just on over this weekend. 3 really exciting fights on there. I definitely recommend if you've got Fight Pass, go and watch it. But Rinya Nakamura is coming off the first series. Dude's an absolute finisher. Although that being said, he does have a unanimous decision in his last fight. But before that, finish round 1, finish round 1, finish round 1, unanimous decision, finish round 1, finish round 2, finish round 1. That's his professional career. Really, really exciting. All the guys that come off this show are super exciting because it's a very small talent pool that they have. So I think he's going to be a really, really fun watch, Rinya Nakamura in the opening fight. Obviously, Oban Elliott, he's going to be a lot of fun, the Welsh gangster.
I was going to mention him.
I quite like the Miranda Maverick, Andrea Lee matchup. It's kind of one of those matchups where you think, have they not fought already? I mean, I haven't actually checked, but have they not fought already? It seems like these girls have been around the UFC so long and have been kind of stalwarts of this division that it feels like they should have. So that could be, quite a fun fight, I think. So a lot to look forward to.
They haven't fought each other, no.
No, a lot to look forward to. I mean, Nathan, I want to see if you agree with my sentiment that this is kind of now we're getting into the main event, so to speak, of the year. That January up until now has kind of felt like a bit of a Fight Pass prelim type deal, and now this card. Just to close us out, mate. What are your feelings on this pay-per-view overall?
It's all right. It's a nice start to go into the run that we've got. Where you go 298 into 299 into 300. I mean, this is kind of this is the appetizer before the main course has come up. And then the dessert, because I'm a bit of a dessert man, as you can tell. The dessert of UFC 300 is just sitting there waiting for us to get stuck in. But yeah, it's a decent card, mate. Some good fights on there. I'll be completely honest. Like I said, other than the couple we've just kind of talked about, I think as a main card, it's the main card is real solid. I just think like you said, sometimes you look at a pay-per-view, I know why they've done it, but a couple of them, Fernandez opening the cards, I would like on a pay-per-view to see something a little bit more of name recognition, let's say, at that stage. But hey, it's a decent card, man. There's plenty
It's a
of good
decent
fights
card.
on there. So it's solid. Doesn't blow my mind, but
It's
it's
a
solid.
decent card. It's a decent
like how you
card.
put-
It's a lot of fun.
I like how you put it as this is the appetizer, $2.99 is the main course, and then
Mhm.
300 is the dessert. Because we talked about it earlier, and I'm like, I think it just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, plus a little bit like when you do have your dessert in a restaurant, you always decide afterwards you don't know what you're having, and it's the same with UFC 300. Not even got a main event yet. Come on, Dana.
You should just promote
Nobody
Max Holloway
knows.
versus Gaethje as the main event by now.
Yeah, they're gonna struggle for the rest of it. Now you just said Connor's going to be back to the autumn, which is just weird. But another podcast for another day. We'll be back to review all the action from this one. I will point you back towards John's solo preview of Pyfer and Hermansson for this coming weekend, because it will be out before that fight card. So go and check that out as well on the channel. Plenty of interviews as well that we've got. And then we will have also a Hermansson and Pyfer review show before 298 as well. So
Hopefully I'm
Nathan,
not
thanks for
alone.
jumping on, mate. A little bit of a surprise for us, but it's a pleasure to have you as always. And Gamebred Boguslavski, a pleasure to have your company, mate. Thank you, gentlemen, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See everybody.